I would tell my younger self, John, just roll with the punches. There's so much that you can't control. Don't get wrapped around the axle about things that somebody else is going to make the decision. Worry about your world and always exceed your customers' expectations, and everything will work out.
Hey, what's up, man?
John, happy Friday. Happy Friday. How you doing, sir?
Hey, everybody.
Hey, John.
John, how you doing, buddy?
I am fine. Happy to be here.
Right on, right on. Today was interesting because, on Friday, I love recording these podcasts, and usually my son, he's at school, but today was a PA day, as they call it, up here in Toronto. So he's, prior to recording, he's jumping around and he's like showing me a toy, and I'm wearing actually a power ring for today's session. So you got to make sure you wear this ring, Daddy. I'm like, all right, cool, But thankfully he's upstairs now, and I've got the baby gate there. So
my son was doing the same thing, but he's 23, so I can't really.
Yeah. Like my boys are home too. You might hear some little video games in the background, and you might hear me say blah, 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 blah. But it's not too bad. It's not too bad. I mean, it's quiet now working from home, but I've been now moving a little bit, so it's not all constant working from home. Are you guys doing hybrid sort of yet, or still consistently working at home?
I've been doing hybrid, and so some days I wear shorts and some days I wear pants, and I forget which. So if I ever go in the office with shorts on, that's a day I get confused.
Same here. Yeah, most days are from home, but I go into the to my client's office a couple days per week. I love the breakup, like some days from home and some days to get away. Mm-hmm. The joys of virtual work and virtually connecting. So hey everybody out there, and welcome to a brand new episode of As Is To Be. So I'm your co-host, Sean Achimpong, Digital Transformation Specialist.
And I'm your co-host, Carl Reed. I go by Creed. I'm also Digital Transformation Specialist.
Right on. And you know how we do. We like to unpack transformation, both in our professional lives and our personal lives, and share stories and really learn from each other. So today we have a super awesome guest, which you've already seen him. And love to introduce you formally to our guest today. This is John Daly. John, thanks for joining us.
You bet. Super excited to be here. And I'm not just saying that. Sometimes I just say I'm excited to be somewhere, but I'm not. But I am definitely excited to be here.
Right on.
We're glad to have you here, man. And I'm not just saying that.
From his log cabin and all, he has some wood shopping to do after today's session. And butter to churn, right?
Yeah, I like that background.
So, John actually grew up in Green Mountain State of Vermont, mm-hmm. and somehow ended up in St. Louis. He says he took a wrong turn in Cleveland. Mm-hmm. His career began researching for unexploded ordinance and chemical weapons on formerly used defense sites. It was a booming business at the time. And then he moved on to the National Archives of Records Administration, otherwise known as NARA. He spent about 5 years with Boeing in the Metropolitan St. Sewer District, and he's passionate about showcasing how information governance can really improve organizational effectiveness and create realistic and tangible process improvements for companies. Yep. In his spare time, he serves part-time as a Baptist pastor and a high school cross-country running coach. So thank you again, John, for joining us.
My pleasure, guys. Great intro. Thank you.
A wrong turn indeed, John. Let's see if I can get us in the right direction. I'm sorry for the pun. I want to hear a little bit more. So, yeah, thanks, Sean. So the background, your journey, you're I'm gonna say the ambassador of organization effectiveness and governance. Can you walk us through, like, what was that like? How did you get to where you were?
Yeah, and it's funny because if you look at the way your life has transformed, and when we were in junior high school, if someone said, "Hey, what do you want to be when you grow up?" Well, no one's going to say, "I want to be an information governance manager," or "I want to be a records manager." Those professions didn't really, exist at the time. But the passion to pursue change is something I think is kind of indwelt in all of us, whether it's like organizing the kickball the way I want it. There's always this way to try to want to improve things and make things better. And one of the things I've come to realize, I don't pursue change simply for the sake of change, but if it really produces long-lasting and positive results. So I'm thankful to learn that lesson early in life. It's like, I've always just kind of wanted to analyze a process, and whether that process needed improvement or not, I'm always better off thinking through it. And so sometimes I'll look at a process and you know what, they are really knocking it out of the park and I wouldn't change a thing, but so I'm better off thinking through that. So the way I kind of intermarried that with records management, when I first moved to St. Louis, Missouri, fresh out of grad school, back then, there was no Indeed, no LinkedIn for jobs. So I went to a local employment agency, and the person looks at my resume and everything and does a computer search. And they said, "John, I only see 2 jobs, true story, 2 jobs that I think you'd be suited for. One is for a crew chief at Kentucky Fried Chicken." I'm like, well, the hats are pretty cool and the jackets. And I always like to wear the intercom. I'm like, well, what is the other one? She goes, "I don't know. It looks like you'd be a historian or archivist for the federal government." I'm like, well, could you give me the information on that one? And that's when Sean read my bio, my very first job in life was looking for unexploded ordnance and chemical weapons on formerly used defense sites. Wow. And that started the career, because you got to research, you got to find historic maps and photos and all those things, because some of these facilities could be hundreds of thousands of acres in size. So you need to do your due diligence. And so, Creed, in answer to your question, just that first job that I had was really about looking at processes and how things are organized and cataloged at not only the National Archives, but local libraries and state archives, and just kind of learning the whole world of information management and using that information to improve our processes, which are reports that literally would save people, thousands of dollars, because they knew where the ordnance was, where the chemical weapons were, and they didn't have to do surveys on just, thousands and thousands of acres. So long answer to a short question, but.
Mm-hmm. And, at that time, did you know you were doing improvement? Like, as you're managing this, are you scratching your head and say, why is it that we do it this way and perhaps we can do it another way? Like, or are you already thinking in those terms?
Yeah, I guess that's just part of maybe your upbringing or always having a quizzical nature. And it's not like trying to show somebody, well, hey, have you ever considered this? It's just like that natural curiosity. And that's one of the things I really think is important for leaders today, is always having that natural curiosity. Because I think the opposite of leadership, or an opposite of having that curiosity is boredom. If you're not continuing to learn, we can become. And I learned that lesson early in life too. So I'm about 22 years old. There was a guy named Riley that I worked with. And I meant this question in the most innocuous way. I didn't mean to have any offense to Riley, but I said, Riley, he was about 50. He's about my age now. I said, Riley, when did you lose your work ethic?
Oh. Okay. All right.
In hindsight, I could have phrased the question a little bit better.
So you gained that soft skills a little bit later in life. Is that what you're saying?
The book Emotional Intelligence hadn't come out yet.
Okay.
And he wasn't mad or anything, and I thanked him for it. But his answer was so profound that it just came to my mind now. And he goes, John, I wasn't always this way. As I am now, I once was like you. And he said, when I became good at my job, when I learned the skill set, I found I could do my job in a shorter amount of time. He goes, with that extra time, I didn't use it to go to the next level. I didn't use it to start another skill set. I didn't use it to my advantage or the organization's advantage. And I got comfortable. And it affected kind of my career. And so his message to me, and I think I've really taken that to heart, is always be growing, never get comfortable. He said mediocre people are always at their best. That's why there's so many of them. So I'm like, okay, so not that I've set the world on fire or anything, but I've always learned that if I'm not growing, then I'm declining. So that's kind of the thing. And I think that's true for no matter what your profession is. So for information management, records management, it's changed so drastically just in the past 5 years that you got to be up on the skill set, but also, like you said, Creed, the soft skills, which I hopefully I've gotten now, maybe not when I was 22, but the soft skills and the hard skills are definitely go hand in hand if you really want to pursue this profession and add value to your organization.
Absolutely. Wow. Yeah, it really, I couldn't agree more. Like, if we're not growing, always be growing and never get comfortable, because
never.
Yeah, and now, us being fathers and stuff like that, it's definitely realizing, one, I have to live that way in order to inspire my son and for them to grow and achieve their goals and their dreams as well.
And a lot more is caught than taught. So even on days where we think we're not actively instilling a sense of values into our kids, they're always watching, how's dad treat his mom? How does he, perform the work, all that stuff. So, and sometimes you think you've missed something, and there might be times where I'm like, are they really getting this? But as they get older, I know your kid's a little bit younger, but as they get older, I think they do come around and say, I know I gave you a hard time earlier, but it really was important the way that you raised us and taught us things. So never think you're not being effective, because you are, even if you don't see the results, immediately.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Hey, we could close on that. That was
Cue the exit music.
Cue the music.
I mean, those were good gems, but we have a few more. We have a few more questions for you.
I'm, so about John, his name actually precedes him. We're both part of a professional organization worldwide that specializes in information governance and transformation, really, for companies. John is an active speaker and member there. Just to drill a little bit deeper, in an organization that's been doing the same thing for a long time, what kind of tactics and techniques do you use to motivate people to change or to alter the way that they're working?
So it's great when you learn these lessons early in life, because technology is always going to be changing. So we're always going to need new ways of doing things. But the one thing that's always going to be the same is the people that, for whatever reason, like doing things the way they've always done them. And I get that. I think I get comfortable in my routines as well. And I think there's something to be said for routines. Routines could be good, especially if you're, developing good habits in life. So not to go off on a rabbit trail, but you mentioned I coach cross country. Well, that takes a lot of energy. I do every workout with the team every day. So I'm in bed by 8:30 and 9 o'clock, because I know next day I got to run, mile repeats. So routines can be good, but you could also get stale. And so one of the things that I do to try to affect positive organizational change is let's take a new software implementation. I become a subject matter expert to the greatest extent that I can in that software. And then I show them how it could improve their normal work day. Where, for example, maybe you're starting off on a ROT initiative, redundant, obsolete, and trivial information. And I think every time an employee has to go through a mountain of electronic information to find what they need, well, that's what we say that an unneeded labor expense just occurred. Like, took that person's salary based on the 20 minutes it took them to find that information. We're talking about real value there, monetary value. And so I kind of learn the software first, or I learn the new change management first, and I'll be like, you would not believe how much time I've saved by doing this now this way. So kind of do the quick win in my own world. When I said, look, my share drive just went down by 75%. Due to this X software, it's like, you gotta try this. So it's learning the system first, having a passion for the change. So if you're like, yeah, I tried this software, I guess it worked okay. Well, you lost them already. So it's having the knowledge and having the passion and showing the benefits of the change. And I forgot what the theory is called, but whenever you're trying to influence change, you have some people that are for it and some that are against it. And it's not like you just want to keep pushing for and for, but sometimes you have to go around the back end and remove the resistor. So, you know, I mentioned Riley earlier, so I'll pick on, you know, if Riley was really against something and he was like the main person, well, I'm not going to try to get more allies against Riley. I'm going to go around and say, Riley, what's your biggest hiccup for this change? And I've done that before, to really find the people that are most vocal against it. And they might have a good reason. And that's the thing. If we get nothing else out of today, which I hope we get a couple things, but it's always about the process, never about the person. And some people are very vehement in their opinions and their beliefs. So I would say, Riley, you know what? I know you're not a big fan of this, and if he could come up with a couple points, and I could kind of find a way to fix those or make those, you know, irrelevant to what he was concerned about, then that's a win. And you brought over one of your biggest. So, and long story short, again, Creed, but it's knowing your subject matter, having a passion for the change, showing the benefits of the change, and being systematic in who you need to win over to implement the change.
Yeah, I like the sound of that.
Easy to say, hard to do.
It is to say, hard to do, but from a motivation perspective, those are the 5 motivated words that get me excited when I'm on a project. So it's never been done before, or it's always been done that way. Either way, when I hear that, I'm like, all right, thank goodness. I'm
challenge
ready.
Accepted.
Challenge accepted. And you're right. It is never about the people. It's always about the process. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the product, but it's definitely always about the process. Really, really great insight. And Sean, I imagine you feel the same way, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And that personal element really, it's one thing to talk about a change that we're not personally bought into or doing, but you could just, when you can speak to something from a personal experience, you know, then it becomes more relatable to the people that are subject to the change. So yeah, I've seen that both in my personal life as well as in my professional life. The receptivity, if they're talking to me, Sean, as a person, and a user myself. So what a
now,
great
there
topic.
are some people that really, there's a term for this. I didn't create it. It's called EGRs, extra grace required. Like some people
extra what? Say that again?
Extra grace required.
Okay.
Like some people are just, I don't know what it is, but you know, maybe they just don't want anything to do with your project or your process improvement, and they make it known in meetings. And it's just somebody that, let's face it, we're not robots. So somebody, if there's that one person in your life that just kind of gets under your skin, or when you see them coming down the hallway, you want to go the other way, or maybe they want to go the other way when they say you, either way. But EGR people, just some people need a extra grace. And I always keep that in mind, because you don't know what people are going through, and they don't know what you're going through. So why would we ever, you know, need to have any, you know, harsh feelings when we're talking about process improvement? So if somebody might have a snarky remark or something, you know, let it go. We're here to, you know, institute change and not let it become personal. So I've always just kind of remembered EGR. And for some people, like I said, I might be the person, because I might say something. I'm not always, you know, I have blind spots too. And I can get a little snarky at times. And so just, you know, keep in mind that you never know personal struggles that people are going through. And it's good just to keep the main thing about the main thing and never let it, you know, get personal.
It's interesting that you have that. I in my communication plan. So if I make a communication plan, I make a list of individuals similar, and there's the early adopters, and there's a group that I call follow the followers. And it's those individuals that I actually really, really cater to, just as you said, give grace, because it's usually those are the biggest champions once you win them over, or something that is what was preventing them from adopting or accepting the change was because they had a significant problem, issue, and the solution, they're involved in that solution. Then those are the individuals that I go after. And I call them follow the followers, because when they champion, everyone else says, hey, well, if Sean's on board, and he was the biggest, loudest voice in the room at that time, because he had the most passion about it, or has the most information or most experience, you know what, if he's on board, I'm going to get on board. So I like how you put that, grace. Really amazing.
Yeah. Or you can look at it as where two gangs fight and you take out the bigger guy and then he loses, so they all fall.
About the same thing. About the same thing. You mentioned Riley. Is it Riley? You mentioned Riley several times. Okay, so I don't know if he's a mentor, but based on your career and your history with Riley or before Riley was early in your career. So let's go back. That's what, 20 odd years? Or you're young looking. I say that's 10 years. 10 years, right?
Text in the mail.
Let's for argument's sake say 20 years from that, 20 years ago. What would you tell yourself 20 years ago? And I have a follow-up after that. Like, what would be some advice you'd give yourself, your 20-year-old early self?
Probably just control the things that you can control. And when I was with the Boeing company, they actually get this. I did new employee orientation at the Boeing company. Somebody in records management would speak to new hires. I did it like every Friday. And so, which was great. It was like, I don't know if HR was just like, there's so many people, let's just get someone else to do it. But one of the things I would tell our new hires at Boeing is that there's two really essential attributes that are going to be just vital to your career. And it's flexibility and communication. And I've added others since then, like humility and integrity. But I would tell my younger self, John, just roll with the punches. There's so much that you can't control. Don't get wrapped around the axle about things that somebody else is going to make the decision. Worry about your world and always exceed your customers' expectations, and everything will work out. So I think sometimes when we're young in our career, maybe, for example, sometimes we're not young enough. How's that expression go? I'm not young enough to know everything. Sometimes when we're coming out the gate, we think we've got all the answers, right? And so there's people that are, we maybe not realize that, we're not the first ones to come along, and people have wisdom and experience. So I think I would tell my younger self is just do it well. And I've always really subscribed to that theory. And I think I mentioned it to Sean before we got started, is that always exceed your customers' expectations, because good work follows good work. And when you knock out that project, or when you go to the extra length to fulfill a customer's request, that just builds your brand. And not that you're building your brand just to build it, but you're just building your reputation, and you're building relational capital with other people that know you well. And so I always kind of look as everybody is my customer. And so when I'm working with somebody, even when I'm coaching or at church, everyone I'm talking to is my customer. They deserve my undivided attention. They deserve my, my time, and they deserve my best effort. And when you do that in the corporate world, you probably wouldn't be able to contain all the business that would come your way. So, younger John, slow your roll, get wisdom, get experience, and then, knock it out of the park.
Yeah, get wisdom, slow your roll. I love that. I remember, my younger self, you get that certification. I got my 6 million certification. I had all the fresh books in front of me. I thought I knew everything. I thought I could manage every project. And, I met a few mentors that slowly showed me to slow my roll and get that wisdom, because you don't have that experience to leverage that.
Now, I'm sure I was going to say, now everyone's a mentor in their own sort of way. So when I mentioned Riley, even though he wasn't like a mentor, I still learned from him. So whether you've had good coworkers and supervisors or some that have challenged you, you really learn a lot about life regardless. So I found, and I'm kind of not sad to say this, but I kind of regret it in a way. I've had very few people in my life professionally that have kind of been that iron sharpening, where every time I'm with that person, it's like just energy happens, and you get, you just feed great ideas off each other, because it's a rare breed like that. Sometimes, I've had a lot of close associates, but man, if you could find just 1 or 2 people in your life that, you give them permission to speak truth in your life, because like I said, we have blind spots. So when you have someone says, look, have you really thought this through? And because like I said, you're never not trying to get wisdom in life. I don't care, what age we are. Mm-hmm. But man, I guess what I'm trying to say is a true friendship is something where, in the corporate world too, is somebody that really can provide great insight into your career. Because a lot of times, I don't know, even if you're trying to get in shape, find someone that's doing whatever sport you're doing, and maybe they're a little bit better at it than you, so they could bring you along. And for anyone who's watching or listening, finding a mentor really can be just night and day in your career and the enjoyment that you get out of it.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Sean, do you mind if I ask a follow-up?
Yeah, by all means.
John, a follow-up. So I'm always curious, people in their professional life now, that what would you tell your former self 2 years ago? So we're in the middle of the pandemic. So all the learnings and lessons you got pre-pandemic, you're sort of out of it now, or what did you tell yourself 2 years ago? And is it the same thing or is it slightly different?
So 2 years ago, so that would have put me at the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District. And I just looked at my position there objectively. And I think I was about 18 months ahead of the organization in regards to implementing change. So I was trying to push digital signatures and content services platform and all good things, but the organization, I just might not been ready for it at that time. So oddly enough,
pre-pandemic, right?
Yes, pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, pandemic wasn't even a thing. Yes, trying to implement that. It's almost like slow your roll again, whether it was 20 years ago or 2 years ago. So, but yet you need people that are on the outer sphere. You need somebody who is about 12 months or 18 months ahead of the organization, looking at the technology, looking at things that could institute positive organizational change. And everything that you see isn't going to be implemented, but you got to separate the wheat from the chaff. So when I saw that, hey, we got a great opportunity to implement, enterprise content management system to digitally transform the organization, find a couple stakeholders, but then you got to go through that RFP process and all that. So I guess really you got to work far enough ahead so people see the vision, but you got to be just not too far ahead where they lose connection with it. So 2 years ago, before the pandemic, it was just, I think really what I was struggling with is trying to find those internal stakeholders that really was as passionate about the change that I was, and found a few, which is fine. I try to find that one person in every department or division that I call a person of peace. Somebody's like, this is awesome, let's run with it, and they do a pilot and they're, so 2 years ago, it's finding internal stakeholders for my initiatives.
And of course, after the pandemic,
like most organizations, when you work for a sewer district, that you gotta be near where the product is. So if I could say it that way.
Okay, that's really walking the Gemba, eh?
With nose plug and everything, then.
So, but like most organizations, we implemented 365 across the organization in a very short period of time, but still went back after and put in some governance and prevent team sprawl and that. So after the pandemic, I actually was not thankful for it. Don't get me wrong. I was thankful for the opportunity that we got to speed up our change management. It really did. It accelerated it. So I wish we could take that acceleration and bottle it and use it on a day-to-day to accelerate change during the normal course of business. So I don't want to say it took a pandemic for us to implement change, but it certainly kind of got the ball rolling.
Sure. Well said. Yeah, and that's been my experience, and I believe Carl's as well. Just this time that we're going through, the pandemic, has really been a catalyst to the kind of transformation and stuff that we do. One of the things I can really relate to your comments about how important mentors are, because one of my mentors about 6 years back, she told me that through change, you have to really find a burning platform and leverage that burning platform to proceed with change. And that's exactly, I feel like we've been, unfortunately, but fortunately, we've encountered. That's been a real motivator or an accelerator for helping companies transform the way they do business. So couldn't agree more.
One of the things that helped us is, so in the information governance field, I have strategic initiatives, And when I can get those initiatives on the organization's strategic business and operating plan, so we have an organizational wide plan. And when I'm able to get IG initiatives on that plan where it gets high level executive review and it's on their radar, that has helped change too, because in my level, I could only influence by example or maybe the threat of an upcoming, internal audit or something, but those are like incremental changes. But when every director sees IG initiatives on the overall strategic business and operating plan of the organization, that has helped influence change across as well when you get that top level executive support.
I'm fascinated about that. Did they come to you as the pandemic was unfolding, or were you still going to them? Like, did you find a dynamic shift through this period?
As far as trying to institute IG initiatives?
Like senior leadership and then their interest in rolling out IG and transformation. And
no one comes to me. Pre-pandemic, pandemic, post-pandemic, nobody comes to me. I'm always going, always. So yeah, that's nice of you to think that somebody actually says, hey, John, we'd like to help you with your IG initiative. Now, it's not like they're against it or anything, but they're busy. So you have to have the ability to see things through to completion where, okay, somebody doesn't answer your IM or your email or your call, or you stop by their debt. You gotta keep going and always do it in a winsome manner. And I had one director tell me at one time, he goes, look, IG just isn't in my top 5 things. And I'm like, I get that. And just let me know when I make your top 10 and we can have a quick conversation. So like we said, always about the process. And people have day jobs to do, and I get that. And that's why you never burn a bridge. You never get, antsy about anything. When a director finally has time to kind of spend 15 minutes with you, then you take it and you accomplish what you can. Might not be a big win, but hopefully it's a little bit more than you did, before the meeting. I've learned to take rejection well, basically, guys. That's what I'm trying to say.
You're a staunch advocate, and eventually they find us. Yeah. Good stuff. Man, this has been a fantastic conversation. Definitely learning a lot, and even just about fatherhood and stuff like that. And what we're wondering, like, how can people follow you, John, and learn more about your journey?
Well, it's funny you say that, because at work, what do they say the definition of an expert is when you go 50 miles away somewhere and all of a sudden you're an expert and people want to follow you. All the things that I've said today and that we've talked about is all good stuff. But sometimes when you're, a prophet is without honor in his own hometown. So it's like you're preaching to the choir and your fellow employees are like, hey, that's great, John, that's great. And it's nice for you to say if people want to follow you, but no one ever does. But I'm on LinkedIn, and you could probably just put my name on there. Apparently there's a golfer with the same name as mine who's a little bit more famous. So
he stole your name, buddy.
Yeah, he stole mine. But what you mentioned AIM earlier and LinkedIn, that's where I really get a lot of my kind of mentoring too. When I see other people in our profession, Sean, doing good things and getting certifications and finding out about webinars and conferences, IG, just like any other discipline out there, it's not a huge world. And what I love about that, our profession really is ubiquitous. You think of any major organization in the world, they need what we do. And so that's nice as far as, security and that standpoint, but it's nice to make those connections. And when you have those calls, you find out that there's a lot of people going through the same pressure points as you are. Still struggling with shared drives, still struggling with, getting a hold of our most valuable information, and still struggling to get my information to actually be dispositioned to match up with the records retention schedule. Just basic things, but people still struggle with that. And so they say misery loves company, but at least that you're not the only one out there and you think your problems are bad, but there's other organizations that, hey, it's okay, we're going through it as well. So you find strength in people going through that as well.
Absolutely.
Well, John, I hope in hearing this, the audience understands the importance of information governance and record management, and it makes their top 5 for any organization. And I'm going to still call you the ambassador. So you're not a prophet in your own hometown, but certainly in hearing this podcast, you are to us. And I'll certainly follow you on LinkedIn and looking forward to hear more of that insight. All right.
Well, they say after people being the most valuable asset in the in your organization, information's a close second, you know? So
Right.
if information is important enough to be created, it's important enough to be maintained and governed and secured and leveraged for organizational success. So, you know, back in the day, it was about compliance, you bet, but no boss ever gets excited, says, Daly, what'd you do last year? Well, I made sure we were compliant. No, you want to, you know, what are you doing with that information and how are we, you know, contributing to the bottom line? So, anyway, it was great to talk with you guys today too. I love Sean, you're just a guy you're all over the place and you always have great resources and great stuff. So you're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you. Definitely a team effort, but I really appreciate it. Cool. So let's just wrap up, you know, so thank you again, everybody, to our audience out there. You know, here we have it again, folks. Thank you, John, for joining us today and just filling our minds and our thoughts with really insightful wisdom. Carl, brother man, you know, it's a peach as always.
Always. John, you're my top 5, man. In my top 5, okay? People, process, product, information, governance. Telling you, recommend it.
And John, yeah.
And John. But he's all in that.
And Carl, you're a great podcast host, man. I mean, your demeanor, the way you ask questions, your personality, I think you got a career in this.
Thanks. That's what my wife and mom said. Hey, it might be real. Thank you.
So final thought, everybody, you know, so stay cool, everybody. And remember, you can live your life as is, or you can chase a dream of where you want your future to be.
Peace.